Recently, there's been a video that's gone somewhat viral from a guy who runs a firearms channel. He calls himself the guy with beard, guns, and gear. He had police show up at his house, and I thought this was a good opportunity to have a bit of a refresher and some reminders of recommendations that I have and rights that you have as firearms owners or any Canadian citizen. Hello, my name's Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So as I said in the preamble, there's a gentleman, Canadian gentleman, who has a channel with about 3,500 subscribers, calls himself Guy with Beard, Guns, and Gear. I had a look at the channel. He talks a lot about firearms stuff, talks about firearms laws, although he doesn't present himself as a lawyer. As far as I know, he's not a lawyer. He's just a firearms enthusiast and someone who has some experience with firearms, may even be a firearms instructor, and has that layman's knowledge of something that you should have when you're involved in a hobby, especially one that can have a higher risk of encountering law enforcement than other hobbies. So recently, he apparently had the police show up at his place. So I want to take a look at that. We're not going to watch the whole video because it's 10 minutes long, and as you know, I like to try and keep Don't Talk TV videos under 10 minutes. We'll watch a bit, some of the more salient points that I jumped out at me, and my commentary of...
So last night, I probably went through the nightmare scenario for every single firearms owner. So I'll tell you a little bit what happened. All right, so my son is at school, and he's talking to his friends, and they're talking about, hunting and stuff like that.
Right here, issue number one. There's a very old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. When it comes to firearms and anything politically incorrect, I'd say an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. That principle was not put into place here. So this gentleman respectfully made two key errors here. One, sent his children to government brainwashing center, otherwise known as public school. I've talked about this in the past. I appreciate that not everyone can afford to do that, although I would submit that it's more easily done than a lot of people think, and you can check out my episode about the laws on homeschooling, not necessarily on the financials of how you can make that work. But even if we're assuming that man has no choice, his family's going to starve if both parents are working, and his children are just not capable of having that self-discipline to educate themselves. Number two, he did not teach his children the very important adage, I think this comes from World War I or World War II, loose lips sink ships. That's exactly what happened right here. You don't talk about guns at a government school. That's just period. You just don't do it. Now, people say, well, you should be able to. Sure, I agree you should be able to. You should be allowed to do a whole bunch of things that you can't do. The reality is, as you viewers of this channel know, I'm always about practical solutions on what the reality on the ground is, not what we wish the reality was. The reality on the ground is, you're just begging for this sort of trouble if your children don't know that they should not talk about firearms when they go to school or when they're out and about in other settings.
He mentioned the fact that he went hunting or whatever, like last year, or, that he goes hunting with me, and the topic of firearms came up. Well, somebody overheard this and passed it to the school administration. School administration felt that they had no other choice but to call in the authorities.
What he said right there about the kids going to the school administration saying, we, quote, have no choice, unquote, but to do this, that's exactly why I just said what I said. You do not talk about these things in a government school setting, because this is what will happen. I'm a little bit surprised that this gentleman didn't already know that. I guess he's been lucky. Well, it sounds like he was living in the country, recently moved to the city, but country or city, it's just a matter of time. It's when, not if, something like this is going to happen if you're sharing your firearms hobby in a setting like that.
So, last night, I'm at work, I get a phone call around 5:30 p.m. and my wife says, the police are here. I'm like, what do they want? Say, they want into the house. They want to check on the firearms. I said, what are you talking about? So anyway, I told my wife, I said, well, unless they have a warrant, they're not looking through anything. Well, I mean, we'll answer questions or whatever. If they're starting to insist on it, then I said, we're going to contact a lawyer. And before we go any further, we're going to talk to a lawyer. So police came in, all three of them, including a sergeant, a supervisor. I guess it was that, critical of an issue that they wanted to have a supervisor on site. Talk with my wife a little bit, talk with my son a little bit.
Now, here we see problem number 3, in my view, is his wife answered the door. Episode number 1 of Don't Talk TV highlighted the right that every person in Canada has, not just firearms owners, to not answer their door, and why that's a good idea. Just don't answer the door to the police is my prescription, and that's another ounce of prevention that's worth a ton of cure after the fact. None of this whole conversation that he talks about this inquisition that the police put him under, none of that happens if they didn't answer the door. None of that happens if they didn't talk to police. This channel is called Don't Talk TV because my number one advice is don't talk to police. Now, he says that he was only going to call a lawyer if the police really continued to push it. My advice would be call a lawyer, get a lawyer on the phone right away. If you really don't feel comfortable with a scenario where you're just leaving the police hanging and you're not talking to them at all because you think that's going to make me look suspicious, call a lawyer. Get a lawyer to have a quick conversation with the police. I have found this to have extremely high success rate whenever I've had people I know or clients or potential clients call me. They have a situation where the police are calling them. They don't know what to do. I call the police, tell them along the lines of, I'm Nicholas Wansbutter, I'm a lawyer, I've been retained by this individual, I understand you've been wanting to speak with them, could you please tell me what this is all about? And then tell them, with respect, officer, I know you're just trying to do your job, but on my advice, my client will not speak to you. If you have something specific you want me to pass along to them or something you want to ask, you can direct that to me, and then I may or may not be able to answer that, but they're not talking to you. And that, in my experience, totally diffuses the situation because the police know, okay, this person, not only do they know their rights, they've got a lawyer, we're not going to get away with anything here, and we have nothing because it is a fishing expedition. If they're, as I've said in the past, if they're even talking to you, they have nothing, they're looking for you to give them something for them to get a warrant. And I recommend, instead of listening to the guy with the beard, guns and gear on what is lawful for a warrantless search, I suggest you look at my video on warrantless searches if you want information about that. But bottom line is, don't answer the door, don't let police in, don't talk to them, call a lawyer right away. That's my advice. But number one, make yourself safe to begin with. Don't open yourself up to situations like this. Loose lips sink ships. It's just the reality of the world we live in. If you are interested in or doing anything that's not complete wokeness, you're better to keep quiet about it. Stay circumspect. Don't be broadcasting it all over the place because unless you're willing to deal with these potential repercussions. Again, I'm not saying whether this is right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the reality of the situation. And my advice is according to that reality on the ground. This video itself is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, call a lawyer. You can call another lawyer, myself. My contact information is below. If there's topics you'd like to see us cover on this channel, please send us a suggestion in either to the email address listed below or by leaving a comment in the comments section. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on social media.